The galaxy had always looked at humans with a kind of amused smile, as if they were children trying to play at the table of great empires. The older species, with their thousand-year dynasties and fleets that stretched across the stars, often called humanity the patient ones. Humans rarely rushed to anger. They chose peace when possible, trade over violence, and dialogue over war. For decades, this made them seem harmless. But patience has a limit. It began on a cold outpost world named Leora 7. It was not a famous planet. It had no riches, no military bases, no history worth telling. It was simply home for more than 50,000 humans, farmers, engineers, teachers, and children who dreamed of the stars. They had lived there in peace for 30 years. Then, without warning, the Dravari Empire attacked. The Dravari were tall, scaled aliens who prided themselves on conquest. To them, Leora 7 was nothing more than territory to claim. They sent warships across the sky and rained fire on the colony below. At first, the people of Leora 7 could not believe it. They had no army, no defenses, only old shuttles and mining equipment. The colony's leader sent desperate messages. "We surrender. We will pay tribute. Please stop." But the Dravari did not stop. Fields burned. Homes collapsed. Families ran for cover as the ground shook beneath falling plasma strikes. In 6 hours, half the colony was ash. Survivors gathered in the underground shelters, holding their children close, whispering prayers into the dark. One human ship escaped through the chaos, a small courier vessel. Its engines burned at maximum as it fled toward Earth space. On board was a single pilot, his face pale, his voice tight with rage as he recorded a message. "Leora 7 is gone," he said, his eyes full of smoke and fire. "They slaughtered us." They laughed as they did it. "Tell Earth, tell the Council, tell every human. Our patience is broken." The message spread faster than any ship. It reached Earth in hours, and within days every human world knew the truth. The galaxy did not expect what happened next. For years, alien diplomats had pushed humans around, knowing they would forgive. When human freighters were raided, Earth sent complaints but rarely retaliated. When human ambassadors were insulted in council halls, they swallowed the words and walked away. Even when human borders were tested, they held back their fleets, always believing peace was better. But Leora 7 changed everything. On Earth, in the Grand Chamber of the United Terran Assembly, the delegates listened to the survivors' recording, the sound of screaming children, the thunder of collapsing shelters, the desperate call for help. All of it filled the hall. When the recording ended, silence fell. No one moved. Then a man named Admiral Kieran stood. He had served the fleet for 40 years. His hair was gray, his voice steady, but his eyes burned like fire. "We gave them patience," he said. "We gave them mercy. We gave them time. And they repaid us with ash. No more waiting. No more silence. It is time the galaxy learns what happens when humans fight." The chamber erupted, not in chaos but in unity. Voices rose together. No more patience. No more waiting! Across Earth, news channels replayed the recording of Leora 7 again and again. Across the colonies, families wept and clenched their fists. Across the fleet, soldiers looked at their commanders and asked only one question: "When do we launch?" The galaxy, still laughing behind its closed doors, did not understand. They believed humanity's anger would fade in a week, just like before. They believed humans would send petitions, maybe a few warships, but nothing serious. They were wrong. For the first time in history, humanity united not for defense, not for survival, but for justice. In the shipyards of Luna, dreadnoughts hummed with power as engineers worked without rest. On Mars, entire regiments of armored marines lined up for deployment. In the outer colonies, farmers put down their tools and picked up rifles. Even merchants donated ships and supplies. Everyone wanted to fight. Everyone wanted to stand. The phrase spread like fire across the stars. The last straw. It was painted on ships. It was whispered in training camps. It was spoken in classrooms, where children learned why their parents had joined the fleet. The meaning was simple. This was the moment when patience ended. And so, on the eve of the first day of the Six-Day War, humanity stood at the edge of a storm. The galaxy still mocked them, calling them fools for rising against the Dravari Empire, but those same empires would soon learn the truth. A patient species can be gentle, forgiving, even kind, but when that patience breaks, they are unstoppable. The first day of the war began with silence. The Dravari Empire had grown arrogant after destroying Leora 7. They celebrated across their capital worlds, toasting to another victory for their glorious empire. To them, humans were weak, too scattered, too slow. They believed the outpost had been nothing more than a warning, a lesson to show humanity their place. But while the Dravari feasted, humanity was already moving. At dawn over Earth, the fleet gathered. Hundreds of ships rose from dry docks, their hulls still shining with fresh paint. From small frigates to massive carriers, each ship bore the same mark, a single white line across the bow, the symbol of the last straw. Admiral Kieran stood aboard the flagship Resolute. Around him, officers worked in silence, their faces cold with determination. For once, there was no hesitation. Orders came sharp and clear, and everyone obeyed. Humanity was no longer waiting. "Set course for Dravari border," Kieran commanded. "Operation Dawnfire begins now." The galaxy expected chaos, but what happened next stunned them. Humans did not rush blindly into battle. They struck with precision, like a blade sliding between armor. The first target was a Dravari supply convoy. 20 cargo ships, lightly guarded, drifted near the border. They carried weapons, fuel, and food for the Empire's forward fleets. The Dravari escorts, arrogant and careless, joked about lazy humans and didn't even raise their shields. Then the shadows appeared. From the void, human stealth frigates uncloaked, engines humming low. Before the Dravari could react, missiles streaked across the dark. Explosions ripped through the convoy, one after another. In less than 15 minutes, every ship was gone. The Dravari commander managed only one shocked message before his ship burned. The humans, they came from nowhere. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Humans had always been known for trade ships, mining craft, and science vessels. Few realized how quietly Earth had built its war machine. Their fleets were smaller, yes, but each ship carried weapons crafted with deadly efficiency. By midday, the first report spread across star channels. Dravari convoy destroyed. Entire fleet lost, most laughed. They called it luck or a minor skirmish. But then came the second strike. This time, humanity targeted a fortress world, Drexel 4. It was a planet surrounded by orbital guns, believed untouchable. For years, the Dravari used it as a shield, mocking their enemies. "You may touch our colonies, but Drexel 4 will never fall." The humans studied Drexel 4 for months. They knew its weaknesses. They had memorized the rotation of its defense satellites, the blind spots between its massive cannons, the exact timing of its shield cycles. When the attack began, human ships split into 3 groups. The first group charged straight into the defenses, drawing fire. The Dravari commanders laughed at the reckless humans. But while the defenders focused forward, the second group slipped in from the shadow side of the planet, hiding within the planet's magnetic storms. And the third group, the deadliest, fired from long range with rail cannons punching holes through the defenses. Within hours, Drexel 4's proud fortress was silent. Its orbital guns floated in ruins, its surface bases burned, and humanity had not lost a single major ship. News of Drexel 4 spread like wildfire. The galaxy no longer laughed. They whispered. They wondered. Who were these humans who fought like predators in the dark? Meanwhile, on Earth, families huddled around screens watching reports come in. They saw the names of human ships glowing with pride. Resolute, Iron Hand, Dawnfire, Leora's Revenge. Each victory felt like a wound healing. Each destroyed Dravari ship was one more voice of justice for the people lost on Leora 7. By nightfall, the first day of the 6-day war was over. The Dravari Empire had lost 2 convoys, 1 fortress, and thousands of soldiers. Humanity had announced itself with fire. But even more terrifying than the victories was the way humans fought. They were not wild. They were not desperate. They were calm, precise, patient even in war. They did not waste bullets. They did not chase fleeing ships. They struck, they finished, and they moved on. A message was sent from Admiral Kieran to the galaxy at large. "We do not seek war. But if you bring war to us, we will end it quickly." That single broadcast chilled every Empire leader. They saw something in his eyes, something the galaxy had ignored for too long. Humans had patience. Humans had mercy. But when patience... The second day had ended with the galaxy shaken. Humanity's sudden victories left the Dravari reeling, but by the third day the Empire was ready to respond. They gathered their fleets, dozens of cruisers, carriers, and warships that had fought in countless campaigns. The Dravari High Command laughed with confidence. "Now we show the humans their place," one admiral hissed. "One lucky day does not win a war." The Dravari believed in brute force. They believed that numbers always won, and they believed that humans would do the same, charging headlong into battle, desperate to prove themselves. But the humans did something else. Admiral Kieran knew Earth could never match the Dravari in raw numbers. The Empire's fleet stretched across hundreds of worlds, but he also knew something the Dravari had forgotten. Wars are not always won by strength. Sometimes they are won by cunning, and humans had cunning in their blood. On the morning of the third day, the Dravari Armada advanced into the Velan system. It was a key crossroad in space, rich with fuel depots and jump gates. Whoever held Velan could move their fleets freely across the region. The Dravari expected humanity to defend the system head-on, but when they arrived, the skies were empty. The Dravari scouts reported nothing. No human fleet, no defenses. Just silence, cowards, one commander spat. They fled. The Empire advanced deeper into the system. Carriers spread out, frigates swept the asteroid belts, and battleships moved to secure the fuel depots. Everything seemed too easy, and that was the trap. From behind the system's twin moons, human ships waited. Not in one group, but in many small packs, scattered like hunters in the dark. Each pack moved silently, hidden by the moon's shadows and the magnetic storms. When the Dravari spread out, the humans struck. The first attack came from above, as a squadron of human bombers streaked down from the shadow of the larger moon. They launched torpedoes straight into a Dravari carrier's hangar bays. Explosions rippled through its decks and fire lit the void. Before the Dravari could regroup, another human pack hit their fuel depots. The depots burst like suns, sending shockwaves across the system. Dravari ships scattered in confusion, comms flooded with desperate calls for order, but order never came. Admiral Kieran had split his fleet into 20 groups. Each group moved like wolves, striking and vanishing, never staying long enough to be cornered. The Dravari commanders, used to large battles with clear lines, could not keep up. They shouted for their fleets to regroup, but their ships were too spread out. One by one, the humans picked them off. In the asteroid belts, human frigates used old mining equipment, repurposed drills and explosives to collapse entire fields onto enemy cruisers. The Dravari never expected asteroids to become weapons. In the upper orbit, human hackers flooded the Dravari systems with false signals, making them believe ghost fleets were approaching. Ships wasted their firepower on shadows while real human vessels closed in for the kill. By the time the sun of Velan rose over the battlefield, half the Dravari fleet was burning. The rest fled, their proud commanders humiliated, and the galaxy watched in awe. Reports spread like fire across alien channels. Humans had not fought like amateurs. They had fought like predators. They had used every trick, every scrap of knowledge, every old Earth tactic from centuries of war. Ambushes, decoys, sabotage, moves the older empires considered dishonorable. But dishonor did not matter to humans. What mattered was survival. What mattered was victory. On a broadcast from the Resolute, Admiral Kieran spoke again. "You call us cowards for using tricks. You call us dishonorable. But tell me, was it honorable when you burned children on Leora 7? Was it honorable when you laughed as we begged for peace? No, you wanted war. Now you have it. And we will fight it our way." The message spread everywhere. On distant colonies, alien civilians whispered about human cunning. Some feared it. Some respected it. Some even admired it. For the first time, many began to question if the Dravari had picked the wrong enemy. Back on Earth, the people cheered as the news arrived. Children painted wolves of space on their walls. Soldiers wore badges of snarling fangs on their armor. Humanity had found its symbol, not the patient lamb, but the hidden wolf. By the end of the third day, the Six-Day War had changed again. Humanity had proven they could not only fight with strength, but also with intelligence. And every alien empire watching knew the truth. If humans could win with so little, what would happen when they gave everything? The Dravari licked their wounds, swearing vengeance. They promised to crush the humans with their full power the next day, but deep inside, fear had taken root. Because now they knew. Humans did not fight like anyone else, and the war was only halfway done. By the fourth day of the war, the galaxy no longer laughed. The Dravari Empire, once so confident, now fought with a shadow of fear in their eyes. They had lost convoys, fortresses, and fleets in battles that should have been easy wins. The humans had turned patience into fury, and fury into strategy. But the Dravari were not finished. They believed that one decisive strike could still crush the upstart species. The Dravari High Command gathered its greatest armada, more than 200 warships, led by their flagship, the Bloodfang. Its hull stretched like a floating city, bristling with guns and shields. The Empire declared it the final move, a storm so large no human fleet could withstand it. "This will end it," hissed High Admiral Korvac. "We will erase their fleet in one battle, and humanity will crawl back to their homeworld, broken." But humanity did not plan to meet them head-on. Admiral Kieran knew that numbers alone would overwhelm his ships. He had barely half their strength. Yet he also knew something else. Every day of war had taught humanity new lessons. Every loss sharpened their minds. Every hour made them stronger. And on the fourth day, humans were ready to gamble everything. The two fleets met in the Kessel Rift, a region of space filled with unstable nebulae and electrical storms. The Dravari thought it was foolish for humans to fight there. Their own ships struggled in the interference. But Kieran had chosen this battlefield carefully. As the Dravari armada advanced, thunder rippled through the clouds of charged gas. Sensors flickered. Communications crackled. Visibility dropped. To the Empire, it was chaos. To humans, it was cover. The battle began with a roar. The Dravari fired in every direction, their massive cannons lighting up the void. Human ships danced between the blasts, vanishing into storm clouds, reappearing only to strike. But then disaster struck. A human cruiser, Leora's Revenge, was caught in the crossfire. Its engines failed and fire spread across its hull. The ship drifted helplessly, surrounded by enemy guns. On every human screen, the crew's final message appeared. A young officer, his face burned but his eyes defiant, shouted, "Don't stop fighting. For Leora, for Earth, for all of us." The signal cut off as the cruiser exploded, taking 3 Dravari frigates with it. For a moment, silence filled the human fleet. Grief struck them like a knife. But then something else followed, rage sharper than steel. Soldiers clenched their fists. Pilots gritted their teeth. And Admiral Kieran gave the order that would change the war. "All ships," he said, "form the spear." The spear was a maneuver no alien fleet had ever seen. Human ships, big and small, aligned into a single sharp wedge, engines burning at full power. They aimed directly at the heart of the Dravari armada, the flagship Bloodfang. The Empire laughed at the madness. They charge us? Into 200 ships? But the humans did not slow. They pierced through the storm like lightning, smashing aside enemy cruisers, tearing holes in the enemy line. Fighters swarmed ahead, clearing a path with missiles and railguns. The wedge grew tighter, faster, unstoppable. And then the spear struck the Bloodfang. The flagship's shields lit with fire as human torpedoes and plasma blasts slammed into it. Its guns roared back, tearing apart 2 human frigates, but the wedge never broke. Ship after ship sacrificed itself to keep the line intact. Humanity was not just fighting to win, they were fighting to make a point. Inside the Resolute, Admiral Kieran's voice echoed, "They think we fear death. Show them we don't." The Bloodfang shook under the storm. Its hull cracked. Fires spread across its decks. The Dravari High Admiral shouted for reinforcements, but his fleet was in chaos. The humans had cut straight into their heart, and panic spread through their ranks. Finally, with one last volley, a human destroyer named Iron Hand rammed itself into the flagship's side. The explosion tore through the Bloodfang, splitting it in 2. And just like that, the symbol of Dravari pride was gone. The galaxy trembled at the news. The Dravari Empire's greatest ship, destroyed in open battle by humans who had been mocked as weaklings only days before. The battle did not end there. The Dravari still had ships, still had numbers. But after the fall of the Bloodfang, their spirit broke. Commanders hesitated. Pilots faltered. And humanity pressed forward, driving them back until the rift itself glowed with wreckage. By the time the 4th day ended, the war was no longer about survival. It was no longer about revenge for Leora 7. It had become something larger. It was proof. Proof that humanity could stand against empires. Proof that patience broken could unleash power no one had expected. And as the fires of the rift dimmed, one phrase spread across human and alien. The fourth day had ended with fire in the Kessel Rift. The great Dravari flagship, the Bloodfang, was gone, torn apart by human courage and sacrifice. Across the galaxy, the news spread like lightning. For the first time in living memory, the Empire of Scales had been humiliated. But victory carried a heavy cost. In the ruins of the battlefield, human rescue ships searched the wreckage. Burned hulls drifted through the storms, shattered wings and broken cannons floating like ghosts. Many human crews never returned. Entire families on distant colonies waited for names that would never come. The galaxy whispered about the human triumph, but among humans themselves, silence fell. They had won, yes, but they had also lost sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, and every loss cut deep. In the command chamber of the Resolute, Admiral Kieran stood before his officers. His uniform was scorched, his face lined with exhaustion, but his voice stayed steady. "They think we are fighting for glory," he said quietly. "They do not understand. We fight because they left us no choice. Every ship we lose, every life we give is the price of patience they broke." The officers bowed their heads. They knew the truth. Humanity had endured insult after insult for decades. They had turned away from war even when mocked. They had held their fire even when threatened. But when patience shattered, it was not rage alone that carried them. It was memory. Every injustice remembered, every insult burned into their hearts. And now every human loss was another reason not to stop. On the fifth day, the Dravari tried again. This time they came not with pride, but with desperation. Their fleets launched assault after assault, throwing waves of soldiers into battle. But something had changed. Their morale was shaken. Their fear grew with each hour. Meanwhile, humans fought like people who had nothing left to lose. In one battle near the Helix outpost, a squadron of human marines boarded a Dravari warship. The enemy laughed when they saw how few humans there were. But the laughter ended quickly. The humans fought through corridors with a calm fury, step by step refusing to retreat even as their numbers fell. They planted charges in the core of the ship, and when it exploded, the shockwave destroyed 2 more enemy cruisers. Not one Marine survived. But their names were etched into every newsfeed back on Earth. Children whispered their courage like prayers. Across the colonies, factories worked day and night, sending supplies to the front. Civilians donated their last credits. Farmers gave up harvest to feed soldiers. Even miners dug faster, knowing the ore they pulled from the ground would soon be armor for their protectors. The price was heavy, but the will was unbroken. On the alien side, cracks began to show. For years, the galaxy had believed humans were weak because they valued life, because they cried for their dead. But now they saw something terrifying. Humans did not crumble when they mourned. They grew stronger. Their grief became fuel. Their tears became fire. High Admiral Korvac of the Dravari admitted it in secret council. These humans, they do not fight for empire. They do not fight for greed. They fight because we hurt them. And that kind of fire cannot be put out easily. But the Dravari leaders refused to stop. Their pride was too great. They sent more ships, more soldiers, more resources. Each day cost them more. And yet they could not accept defeat. By the evening of the 5th day, the battlefield stretched across 3 systems. Smoke and debris filled the void. Wrecks of both human and Dravari ships floated side by side, silent tombs in the dark. Admiral Kieran looked at the maps with grim eyes. He knew how much humanity had already paid. He knew how many more would fall before the war was done. But he also knew something else. The galaxy was watching. Every world, every species, every ruler was seeing what humans could endure. And in that endurance lay power. On Earth, broadcasts carried the Admiral's words, "We will pay the price. We will bleed if we must. But never again will the galaxy call us weak. Never again will they say patience means surrender. When this war ends, they will know. Our patience is not weakness. It is strength. And the cost of breaking it is too high for anyone to bear." The people listened, and instead of despair, pride filled their hearts. They lit candles for the fallen. They raised banners for the living. They swore oaths that the sacrifice would not be in vain. The fifth day ended with smoke, sorrow, and resolve. Humanity had paid dearly. But the price had bought something priceless: respect. The galaxy now looked at humans with new eyes. Not as children, not as weaklings, but as warriors who carried both pain and power in their hearts. And as the dawn of the sixth day approached, a new question echoed across the stars. If this is what humans could do while bleeding, what would happen when they struck with their full strength? The fifth day of the war had left both sides bleeding. Human ships floated as wrecks and Dravari warships burned like dying suns across the void. The galaxy watched in silence, wondering which side would break first. But on the sixth day, everything changed. The Dravari High Command believed humanity had reached its limit. They told their soldiers, "The humans are weak. They cannot lose more ships. One more strike and they will fall." Their fleets gathered for a final push, massing near the Arkan Belt, a region thick with icy asteroids and hidden mines. What they did not know was that humanity had been holding back. For 5 days, Admiral Kieran had fought with only part of Earth's strength. He had used older ships, smaller fleets, and cunning strategies. All the while, the true power of humanity was waiting, silent and hidden. On the morning of the sixth day, the waiting ended. From the far side of the Arkan Belt, space itself seemed to open. Massive shadows emerged, ships larger than anything the Dravari had seen from humanity before. These were the dreadnoughts of Luna, the warships Earth had kept secret, their construction hidden for years beneath the excuse of colonial defense. They were not sleek. They were not elegant, but they were terrifying. Each dreadnought carried weapons that could pierce through shields like paper. Each one was a fortress of steel, carrying thousands of Marines. Their names flashed across comms: Unbroken, Lionheart, Vengeance, Dawnstar. The Dravari froze. "Impossible," one commander whispered. "Humans cannot build ships like these." But humans had, and they had waited for this moment. Admiral Kieran's voice cut through the fleet channels. "For Leora 7, for every life taken, for every insult endured, today, patience ends." The dreadnoughts fired. Beams of white fire split through the Arkan Belt, tearing apart entire squadrons in a single volley. Dravari cruisers exploded like sparks in a storm. Their formations shattered as human warships surged forward. But it was not only the dreadnoughts. Every human ship, big or small, moved with the fury of a storm. Frigates darted between the asteroids, ambushing enemies at close range. Carriers unleashed wave after wave of fighters, their missiles streaking across the dark. And the dreadnoughts advanced slowly, unstoppable like mountains crushing everything in their path. The Dravari tried to fight back. Their cannons roared. Their fleets pressed forward. But every move was answered with deadly precision. Human tactics, sharpened over 5 days, now combined with overwhelming force. In the heart of the battle, Admiral Kieran gave the final order: target the flagship. The Dravari flagship was the Emperor's Wrath, a massive battleship that had never been defeated. Its shields were legendary, its guns powerful enough to split moons. The Empire believed it was invincible, but as the human fleet focused fire, cracks began to show. First the outer shields flickered, then explosions rippled along its armor. Fighters swarmed like hornets, tearing open its hangars. And then from the dreadnought Unbroken, a single rail cannon fired, a weapon so powerful it split the enemy's hull in two. The Emperor's Wrath died in silence, its pride broken. The moment it fell, the Dravari fleet collapsed. Panic spread. Some ships fled. Others surrendered. The empire that had ruled with fear for centuries now knew fear itself. Across the galaxy, observers gasped. This was not just a battle. It was a statement. Humanity had not only survived the Six-Day War, they had ended it with a single, crushing blow. On Earth, the news spread instantly. Families cried with relief. Colonies erupted in cheers. Bells rang, lights shone, and banners waved. Children ran through streets shouting the names of the dreadnoughts. But among the soldiers, there was no celebration yet. They looked at the wreckage of their ships, at the names of their fallen friends, and they knew the price had been heavy. Yet they also knew something greater. They had proven themselves. In the ruins of the Arkan Belt, Admiral Kieran sent one last message to the galaxy. You thought our patience was weakness. You thought our silence was fear. But now you see the truth. Patience only delayed the storm. And when the storm came, it ended you. The sixth day closed with fire and silence. The Dravari Empire, once feared across the stars, lay broken. Humanity. The sixth day had ended with the fall of the Dravari flagship, Emperor's Wrath. Its wreckage drifted in silence, a broken crown of a fallen empire. The Dravari fleet scattered, their commanders too afraid to face the humans again. The six-day war was over, but the galaxy still waited. For years, alien empires had mocked humanity. They had called them children of a young world, too patient, too soft, too weak. Even when humanity built colonies, traded goods, and joined the Galactic Council, they were dismissed as the quiet species. Now, everything was different. The news of the war spread across every world. Holoscreens replayed the same images again and again: the burning of Leora 7, the destruction of Drexel 4, the fall of the Bloodfang, and finally the shattering of the Emperor's Wrath. Each image carried the same message: patience was not weakness. On distant planets, alien civilians spoke in hushed voices. Some feared humanity, whispering that the Terrans had unleashed a fury no one could stop. Others admired them, amazed that such a young species could stand against one of the oldest empires in the stars. Some even cheered for them, glad to see the arrogant Dravari finally humbled. But for humanity itself, victory was not pride, it was remembrance. On Earth, bells rang across cities. Families gathered to honor the fallen. Names of soldiers and civilians scrolled across endless walls of light. Each one remembered, each one spoken. Children left flowers at memorials. Parents told their sons and daughters about the price of patience and why it mattered. In the United Terran Assembly, Admiral Kieran stood once more before the delegates. His voice was not triumphant, but calm. "We did not seek this war," he said. "We endured insult after insult because we believed peace was worth more than pride. But they mistook patience for fear. They broke our trust. They broke our hearts. And so we showed them what patience truly means, because when it breaks, it is stronger than steel." The chamber rose in silence, not with cheers, but with respect. Even the youngest delegates understood. Humanity had changed forever. Meanwhile, on the ruins of Dravari strongholds, human soldiers helped survivors. They gave water to civilians, treated alien wounds, and buried the dead with dignity. This shocked the galaxy as much as the war itself. Humanity had fought with fury, but when the fighting was done, they showed mercy. An alien journalist asked a human marine why they offered aid to their enemies. The soldier's answer spread across 1,000 worlds: because we are not like them. We don't fight for conquest. We fight so no one else will suffer what we did. That single line shook hearts across the stars. Empires built on fear began to question themselves. Races long oppressed by the Dravari whispered of freedom, daring to hope again. And everywhere, the name of humanity carried new weight. The Galactic Council, once a stage where humans were ignored, now turned silent when the Terran delegates entered. No one laughed anymore. No one mocked. When Admiral Kieran walked into the chamber, even the oldest alien rulers lowered their heads. He spoke only one sentence: "Respect our patience, or remember our war." The Council understood. In the months that followed, treaties were signed. Borders shifted. The Dravari Empire crumbled into fragments no longer feared. Humanity did not claim their territory nor demand tribute. Instead, they rebuilt their colonies, strengthened their defenses, and watched carefully. They had no desire to rule the galaxy, but they had made sure the galaxy would never again doubt their strength. And so, the Six-Day War ended, not just as a story of victory, but as a warning. On alien streets, murals showed human soldiers standing against fire. On space stations, children of different species played games pretending to be Terran pilots. Even in Dravari worlds, once proud and cruel, the people whispered of humanity, not as enemies, but as a storm that had forced their leaders to change. For humanity, the lesson was simple: patience is powerful, but it must never be mistaken for weakness. And for the galaxy, the lesson was unforgettable. When the patience of humans breaks, it does not bend.